Language is not locked inside books or dictionaries. It lives on your tongue, waiting for permission to come out. Many people know English in their minds but freeze when it reaches their mouth, not because they are incapable, but because fear has trained their tongue to stay silent. Today is about untraining that fear and training your tongue to move freely, bravely, and fast. English is not a test you pass. It is a journey you speak. And every journey begins the moment you stop waiting to be ready. Your tongue does not need perfection. It needs practice. When a child learns to speak, they do not wait for correct pronunciation or perfect sentences. They speak with broken words and fearless hearts. That same freedom is what adults forget. To train your tongue, you must. First, give yourself permission to sound imperfect. Speak even when your sentences feel incomplete. Speak even when your accent feels heavy. Speed does not come from correctness. It comes from comfort. And comfort only grows when your tongue moves daily without shame. The fastest way to train your tongue is to make English part of your everyday life, not a special event. Talk to yourself in English while doing simple tasks. Describe what you see, what you feel, what you plan to do next. This constant narration removes hesitation and builds muscle memory. Your tongue learns rhythm before rules. When English becomes familiar, your mouth stops asking your brain for approval before every word, and fluency begins to flow naturally. Mistakes will come, and they should. Each mistake is proof that your tongue is working. Do not correct yourself mid-sentence, because stopping breaks confidence. Let the sentence finish, even if it is wrong. Speed is trained by continuity. Correction can come later, but expression must come first. When your tongue learns that it is safe to keep moving, it stops freezing, and English starts sounding faster and smoother. Listening also trains your tongue. You listen to English with attention. Your mouth absorbs patterns, pauses, and emotions. Repeat short phrases out loud, not silently. Feel the movement of your tongue, the stretch of your lips, the sound of your breath. Speaking fast is not about rushing. It is about flow. And flow is learned by imitation and repetition. Most importantly, speak with belief. Your tongue follows your confidence. When you believe your voice deserves to be heard, English stops being a foreign language and becomes your own. Fluency is not a gift given to a few. It is a skill earned by those who refuse to stay silent. Train your tongue with courage, consistency, and compassion for yourself. And one day you will realize you are no longer trying to speak English fast. You are simply speaking freely and fearless. Sly tongue learns through daily courage, not perfect grammar. Because language is not built by rules alone, but by the bravery to use it every single day. Many learners believe they must first master grammar, memorize structures, and sound correct before they speak. But this belief silently trains the tongue to hesitate. The tongue does not respond to theory, it responds to action. Every time you choose to speak, despite fear, despite mistakes, despite imperfect sentences, you are teaching your tongue that it is allowed to move. Courage is the signal that tells your mouth it is safe to try. And that signal matters more than accuracy in the early stages of speaking English. When grammar becomes the priority, fear becomes the companion. The speaker pauses, translates in the mind, judges the airy word, and by the time the sentence is ready, the moment has already passed. Daily courage breaks this cycle. It means speaking before the sentence feels ready, opening your mouth even when your heart beats fast, and trusting that clarity will improve with time. Grammar can be corrected, but silence cannot teach fluency. Each courageous attempt, even if flawed, strengthens the speaking muscles and reduces hesitation little by little. Daily courage is not about loud confidence or perfect pronunciation. It is about showing up consistently. Speaking a few lines every day trains the tongue far more effectively than studying grammar for hours without speaking. The tongue learns rhythm, speed, and flow through repetition. When courage becomes a habit, the tongue stops waiting for permission from the mind. Words begin to come naturally because the fear of being wrong slowly loses its power. This is how speed is built, not by rushing words, but by removing the mental brakes that slow them down. Perfect grammar often creates pressure, and pressure tightens the tongue. Courage relaxes it. When the tongue is relaxed, speech becomes smoother and faster. Mistakes become stepping stones instead of obstacles. Each imperfect sentence becomes proof of progress. Over time, grammar starts to fall into place naturally because the speaker is no longer afraid to use the language. The brain learns from experience, and experience only comes through action. Those who speak English confidently are not the ones who knew the most rules in the beginning, but the ones who dared to speak before they were ready. They chose courage every day, even when their voice trembled. This daily courage reshapes the tongue, rewires the mind, and transforms English from a subject into a living expression of thought and emotion that grows stronger with every brave attempt. Speaking fast begins with speaking freely, because speed in language is not created by pressure, but by release. Many learners try to follow RCE fluency by pushing themselves to talk faster, yet their words stumble because fear tightens the tongue and hesitation interrupts the flow. True speed comes when the tongue feels free to move without constant monitoring from the mind. Freedom in speaking means allowing words to come out even if they are imperfect, unfinished, or emotionally unpolished. The moment you stop controlling every sentence, your speech naturally becomes smoother and quicker. When people hold back their words, they slow themselves down. They pause to translate. They search for the right tense. They judge their accent. And these pauses break the rhythm of speech. Speaking freely removes these interruptions. It encourages continuity rather than correctness. The tongue learns momentum, and momentum is the foundation of fast speaking. Just like walking becomes easier when you stop thinking about every step, speaking becomes faster when you stop thinking about every word. Freedom in speaking also builds trust between the mind and the tongue. When you speak freely, your brain learns that communication does not require perfection to be effective. This trust reduces anxiety, and reduced anxiety increases speed. The tongue responds to emotional safety. When it feels safe, it moves with confidence. That confidence transforms slow, careful speech into natural, flowing expression. Speed becomes a byproduct, not a goal. To speak freely, you must stop interrupting yourself. Many learners cut their own sentences short out of fear of being wrong. This habit trains the tongue to hesitate. Instead, let your tenses finish, even if they feel messy. Flow matters more than form in the beginning. The more you allow yourself to complete thoughts without stopping, the more your speaking speed improves. Fluency grows from full expression, not broken attempts. Speaking freely also means using simple language without shame. Trying to sound advanced often slows you down. Simple words spoken smoothly are faster and clearer than complex sentences spoken with fear. When your tongue becomes comfortable with simplicity, it gains speed and confidence. Over time, complexity naturally increases, but only after freedom is established. Fast speakers are not those who know the most words, but those who feel comfortable expressing thoughts without restriction. They do not race against time, they move with it. When freedom replaces fear, the tongue stops resisting, and English stops feeling heavy. Speaking fast then becomes effortless, because the language is no longer trapped inside the mind, but flowing openly through the voice as a natural extension of thought and emotion shared without hesitation. Mistakes are not enemies, silence is. Because growth in speaking English only happens when sound replaces fear. Many learners see mistakes as proof of failure, so they choose silence as a shield, believing that not speaking is safer than speaking incorrectly. However, silence teaches nothing. It keeps the tongue untrained and the mind locked in hesitation. Mistakes, on the other hand, are signs of movement. They show that the tongue is active, experimenting, and learning through real experience rather than imagination. Every mistake carries information. When you mispronounce a word or choose the wrong tense, your brain receives feedback. This feedback helps the mind adjust and improve naturally over time. Silence provides no feedback at all. It freezes progress and strengthens fear. The more someone avoids speaking to prevent mistakes, the heavier English feels in their mouth. The language becomes something to protect yourself from, rather than something to express yourself with. Silence also feeds insecurity. Each time you choose not to speak, you confirm the belief that your voice is not ready or not good enough. This belief grows stronger and makes future speaking attempts even harder. Mistakes do the opposite. They break the illusion of perfection and replace it with reality. Once you realize that nothing terrible happens when you make a mistake, your confidence begins to rise. The tongue relaxes, and relaxed speech becomes faster and clearer. Fluency is built on imperfect attempts. No one becomes a smooth speaker by waiting. Every fluent speaker once sounded broken, uncertain, and slow. What separated them from others was not talent, but courage to sound wrong. Mistakes train the tongue to keep moving, even when the mind is unsure. This continuous movement builds rhythm, and rhythm is essential for natural speech. Silence also isolates the learner. Language is meant to connect, and when you stay silent, you deny yourself connection and practice at the same time. Speaking, even with mistakes, opens doors to interaction, correction, and understanding. People remember EF more than errors. Communication is about meaning, not perfection. When your message is understood, your mistake loses its power. The fastest improvement comes from speaking first and fixing later. Correction is valuable, but only after expression. When mistakes are accepted as part of the journey, fear loses control. The tongue becomes brave, the mind becomes flexible, and English stops feeling like a risk. In that freedom, speech grows stronger, faster, and more confident, proving that mistakes move you forward while silence holds you exactly where you are. The tongue follows confidence before vocabulary. Because words alone do not create fluency, belief does. Many learners chase new vocabulary, thinking that more words will automatically make them better speakers, yet they remain still. And when it is time to speak. This happens because vocabulary lives in the mind, while confidence lives in the body and voice. When confidence is missing, even simple words refuse to come out. When confidence is present, limited vocabulary still finds a way to express meaning. Confidence gives the tongue permission to move. Without it, the mouth waits, hesitates, and doubts every sound. A NT speaker does not search for perfect words. They use the words they have. This usage trains the tongue to stay active and responsive. Vocabulary grows through use, not storage. When you speak confidently with limited words, those words become stronger and more automatic. Over time, new words naturally attach themselves to this confidence. Many people know more English than they believe, but lack the confidence to release it. They underestimate their ability and overestimate the importance of sounding advanced. Confidence shifts focus from sounding impressive to being understood. This shift removes pressure and allows speech to flow. When the tongue feels supported by belief, it does not panic when a word is missing. It finds another way, using simpler language, gestures, or explanation. And this flexibility increases fluency. Confidence also reduces fear of judgment. Fear blocks vocabulary access. When the mind is anxious, it forgets even the words it knows. Confidence calms the mind, allowing vocabulary to surface naturally. This is why people often speak better English when relaxed or alone. It is not because they suddenly know more words, but because confidence is higher and fear is lower. Training confidence requires action. Each time you speak, you prove to yourself that you can communicate. Each successful interaction, no matter how small, strengthens belief. This belief becomes the foundation on which vocabulary expands. Without confidence, vocabulary remains passive. With confidence, even a small vocabulary becomes powerful. Fluent speakers are not defined by how many words they know, but by how comfortably they use what they know. Confidence turns basic language into effective communication. When belief leads, the tongue follows, and vocabulary catches up along the way. In this process, English becomes less about memorization and more about expression, allowing the speaker to grow naturally into a voice that is clear, steady, and increasingly fluent with every confident attempt. English grows when fear is replaced with action, because language is strengthened through movement, not avoidance. Fear convinces learners to wait, to prepare more, to study longer, and to delay speaking until they feel ready. This waiting feels safe, but it slowly builds a wall between knowledge and expression. AC Tian breaks that wall. The moment you speak, even imperfectly, English begins to grow in a real and practical way. Fear creates excuses. It whispers that your accent is not good enough, that people will judge you, that you will embarrass yourself. These thoughts keep English trapped in the mind. Action ignores these voices and chooses expression instead. When you speak despite fear, you weaken it. Power. Each action proves that fear is not a stop sign, but a challenge that fades once you move forward. This repeated action trains the tongue and mind to respond with confidence rather than hesitation. Growth in English is not sudden, it is gradual. Small actions done daily create powerful change. Speaking one sentence, asking one question, or sharing one opinion in English may seem insignificant. I can't, but these actions build momentum. Momentum transforms effort into habit. Once speaking becomes a habit, fear no longer controls your behavior. The tongue becomes familiar with the language, and familiarity creates ease and speed. Action also creates learning opportunities that fear avoids. When you speak, you receive reactions, corrections, and understanding from others. These real experiences. NCEs teach more than silent study ever can. You learn which words work, which sounds need improvement, and how to adjust naturally. Fear avoids mistakes, but action learns from them. This learning makes English stronger, clearer, and more natural over time. Replacing fear with action changes your relationship with English. It stops being a subject you study and becomes a tool you use. The more you use it, the more comfortable it feels. Comfort reduces hesitation, and reduced hesitation increases fluency. Speed and clarity are not forced. They emerge naturally when action replaces doubt. Those who grow in English are not fearless people. They are people who act even while afraid. They understand that confidence is built through doing, not waiting. Each step taken in fear is a step toward freedom. With consistent action, English stops feeling heavy on the tongue and starts flowing as a natural part of communication, proving that courage in motion is the true engine of growth and lasting fluency. Fluency is trained by consistency, not talent, because speaking English is a skill developed through repetition rather than a gift given to a few. Many people believe that fluent speakers are naturally talented, and this belief discourages learners who struggle. In reality, fluency grows from regular practice, even when progress feels slow. The tongue does not need special ability. It needs frequent exposure and steady use. Consistency turns effort into familiarity, and familiarity turns speaking into a natural process. When practice is inconsistent, the tongue forgets what it learned. Long gaps create hesitation and rebuild fear. Consistent speaking, even for a short time each day, keeps the language active. The tongue stays flexible, the mind stays engaged, and English remains accessible. This daily connection prevents the language from feeling distant or difficult. Small, repeated actions are more powerful than occasional intense effort. Consistency also builds confidence gradually. Each time you speak, you reinforce the belief that you can express yourself. This belief grows quietly but steadily. You may not notice change every day, but over weeks and months, the difference becomes clear. Words come faster, pauses shorten, and sentences feel more natural. This transformation happens because consistency removes the pressure to perform and replaces it with routine. Talent often creates unrealistic expectations. When people think fluency requires talent, they wait for motivation or inspiration. Consistency removes this waiting. It focuses on discipline instead of mood. Speaking daily becomes part of life, not a challenge. The tongue learns patterns through repetition, and these patterns form the foundation of fluent speech. Grammar and vocabulary improve naturally when they are used consistently in real situations. Consistent practice also reduces fear. Fear thrives on uncertainty, and consistency creates familiarity. When speaking becomes familiar, fear loses its strength. The tongue stops resisting, and the mind stops overthinking. English becomes less about effort and more about expression. This ease is what people often mistake for talent. Fluent speakers are not those who practice perfectly, but those who practice regularly. They showed up even on days when they felt slow or unsure. Their consistency trained their tongue to respond automatically and confidently. Over time, English became a part of them, not because they were gifted, but because they were committed. This commitment proves that fluency is built through patience, persistence, and daily action that shapes the tongue into a confident, an expressive voice capable of speaking freely without hesitation.